is an undefeated year for Gamecock basketball, men and women, and this guy covers them as well as anybody out there. It's been a while. We do miss him, but I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope you're off to a good holiday season. David Cloninger with the Post and Courier. Hey, bud.
How you doing, guys? It's a little weird sitting here and not having a football practice to go to, but that's what happens sometimes. A bad end to a bad year.
Bad end to a bad year. We're going to get to hoops in a minute. I was planning to actually lead off with hoops, but Brad Crawford, whom you know with 24/7 Sports, has tweeted out some really interesting news that KJ Jefferson, now former quarterback at Arkansas, is out with the Razorbacks, and he's right now, according to Brad, the top two contenders would be the Gamecocks and the Auburn Tigers. So my question to you is this: with Spencer Rattler expectedly moving on, what would that tell you about the future of this offense? Lenora Sellers is already maybe the perceived starter in 2024.
Well, guys, I mean, I'm checking on that right now. I obviously just saw Brad's tweet and some very recent news. KJ Jefferson himself puts out, hey, I haven't made my decision yet. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Obviously, the portal isn't open until Monday. A lot of reasons why that move would make sense. Obviously, he knows Dowell Loggins very well. South Carolina, will be losing their starter, most likely, probably most likely. And so they don't have one. But not doubting who's told Brad whatever, but I don't know if that – I mean, yes, it makes sense in some ways. In other ways, it doesn't. If you want to start building for the future, you want to go ahead and do it now. And if that's Lenora Sellers, if you want to give Luke Doty a shot at it, then that's what you need to go ahead and do. Obviously, there's going to be some movement in South Carolina's quarterback room no matter what happens this year. That might just make it more. So we'll see what happens. Again, the portal opens Monday. A lot of times things get reported or kids say something and then they backtrack on it. So we'll see what happens. But to me, you're not going to bring in a guy like that and not play him. And you look at what he does, he's obviously a very big talent, but do you have the personnel to really help him work? Dowell Loggins will, but of course they had an offense last year at Arkansas that just was not very good. I know that their OC got fired 8 games in, and Rocket Sanders was hurt a lot too. So which of those was more the cause of why Arkansas struggled so heavily offensively?
Yeah, and those 2 years that he played under Coach Riles, where he played the majority of the year, he completed almost 68% of his passes, threw for about 5,300 yards, 45 touchdowns, and just 9 interceptions, David. So, I mean, I think what I'm getting at here, because there have been other quarterbacks. Clearly, if they're interested in taking a quarterback in the portal, or if KJ Jefferson's name, let me say this differently. If KJ Jefferson's name has come out, then the Gamecocks obviously are at least interested, or they're not disinterested in taking a QB in the portal. But I think what type of quarterback kind of tells me where they want to go with this offense. I don't mean this disrespectfully at all to Spencer Rattler. I think he's the best quarterback that's ever played here. He's not what you would consider a, quote, dual threat quarterback.
No.
Lenore Sellers is, KJ Jefferson is, and maybe somebody else out there if Jefferson doesn't work out.
And that could be a good point, Jamie. I mean, if you look at it and say, obviously, South Carolina's running game this year was not good. And you're probably, well, I can't say probably, but if you're going to be losing a piece that made it at least decent, Mario Anderson, and DeCarrion Joyner's already gone, well, how do you try to fix that? This would give you a half of that fix right away. Say, well, now you could present that running game without necessarily adding another top flight running back, but you'd still have to go get running back. So would it be worth it from a USC perspective to add in a guy who knows Dowell, who knows the system, can run, can offer that threat, or is your offensive line and your other things that you need to work on going to hinder that? So, I mean, again, a lot of things to work on, a lot of things to look at. We'll see how it goes, but the portal does officially open on Monday, and we'll see how it goes from there.
You think this will be the wildest we've ever seen? I mean, it hadn't been around that long, but I'm kind of predicting and projecting that this portal season is going to trump anything we've seen thus far.
Of course it is, Jamie, and especially because the window is shrunk. There's only 30 days. I mean, you've already seen what? probably at least 100 kids from across the country have all said, hey, I'm entering, and it's not even open yet. So this thing, man, it's going to be not only a carousel, but like the biggest carousel you ever saw. And it's just constantly, it's not stopping. Constantly people are just jumping on and jumping off, jumping on and jumping off. And that's the new normal now. That's what you have to do to compete. And of course, any coach who's trying to play it saying, if I can go get that guy, it's going to make my team so much better. But you also have to think, if I get that guy, how many more of my current kids are going to leave? And that's just the way it is. I mean, that's how you have to recruit now. And of course, the early signing period is coming up on December 20th. So you say, if I get that guy, is that going to affect some of those kids that have been committed to me for, say, a year? So it's a whole lot of balls to juggle that are kept in the air constantly, which makes me very thankful that I just have to report on it, not actually do it.
And here I know, I don't know. You might get the same amount of sleep as some of these coaches having to report on it since it's never ending. What have you learned about, just in talking with Coach Beamer and other coaches on staff about what to make of this time of the year? I know that the portal period, as you just mentioned, has shrunk, but it's still, you still have bowl. Well, Carolina doesn't, but in general, you still have bowl practice. You still have the portal kind of overlapping that. You still have the early signing period. I don't understand how they can manage all of this to the best of their ability to be able to build their football program.
Yeah, it's very tough, Jamie. And, there's not a lot of dead time. I mean, it's actually kind of a favor this year. It's like, well, as bad as it is to say, you don't have practice to worry about. So South Carolina started their individual player meetings on Monday. I believe those are set to wrap up today. And so, okay, you've taken care of your current team. The guys that definitely won't be back. There may be a couple more that not go. Now you start spending your time saying, okay, what do I need to do? The portal's always going to be there, but it's not officially open. So right now, you can't contact a kid. Once the portal opens, you can. But of course, you're already starting to build your database of saying, this kid's entering, what can I find out about him? This kid's entering, what can I find out about him? And you go and talk to his people, do what kind of the background check of what you need to do. So there's all that. And then, of course, just because a kid's committed to you and saying, Coach, I'm coming, I'm going to sign with you in 20 days at 6 a.m. Okay, you still got to go talk to that kid. You still got to make them feel loved. You got to text them. You got to do everything that's allowable under NCAA rules. So I know Shane, very meticulous. He sets out everything in a chart or on Post-it notes and just, you knock them out one by one. And I'm sure that's what the staff is doing too, because obviously the head coach can't talk to everybody. There's just not enough minutes in the day. You can't. So you got to divvy that out among your staff. And again, it's actually a little bit of a favor when you don't have a bowl to practice for, because you have that much more time. That said, everybody in that building would rather be practicing right now.
Yeah, there's no question about that. David Cloninger with the Post and Courier here. It's 11:30 on this second to last day of November. DC, clearly there are going to be plenty of fans. Not going to be, there are plenty of fans who are wondering about this staff and will it stay intact. But I don't know that we'll know that for a little while. Coach Beamer, since he's been here, has been very methodical in how he makes staff decisions. How would you comment on that? I'm not asking you for any inside information, because I don't know that anybody has any at this point in time, but how would you view this as we stand here 4 days removed from the end of the season, the timeline in which we might see changes, if there are any?
I realize, guys, it's silly season, and if you have a bad year, somebody's saying like, well, somebody got to be fired just to save face. Maybe. I mean, I look at that football team this year and say, were there a lot of not great performances that you could pin on an assistant coach? Sure. Were there a lot of just dreadful performances? Sometimes. Was there a season-long dreadful performance? I don't think so. I mean, the defense was not great for 8 games. Last 4 games, it was fantastic. The running game, okay, I mean, you can say it wasn't good all year. Very true, but you knew going into the year that it wasn't going to be very good. So what are we even talking about here? And that's because of a failure by the entire staff to land a top-flight running back out of the portal last year. Nothing against Mario Anderson, who they got, but, they brought him in to be kind of the backup guy. That didn't end up working out, but it ended up okay. So you look at that and say, well, could there be moves made? Of course there could. There could be guys where other spots open up and they decide to go there. There could be other minds that like, you know what, I'm going to go to the NFL. Probably not going to happen with this staff, but you never know. It's happened before. And then there are other times where if you're the head coach, you say, okay, it's a bad year. That all comes back on me. Do I feel the need to make a change just for the sake of making a change? To show people, all right, I'm on top of it. I got it. Okay, nobody's going to blame you if you do. But I think Shane Beamer's also smart enough to know you got to have somebody in mind to replace if you're going to make a move. Is there anybody out there right now that you could say, oh, man, I got to have that guy? I don't know if there is, because let's also keep on the other side of the equation here, folks. They got to want to come here too. That's something that a lot of folks often forget when there's a coaching search. Like, they got to want to come here too, okay? It's not just opening up the checkbook. So right now, I don't know if there's anybody that fits that bill. I certainly would not be surprised to see a couple of staff changes before the year is out, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. Right now, I can tell you that everybody's there intact. Nobody's been told, hey, you need to look around, or hey, you're not coming back. But there's a few things coming up. One, you got to end up this recruiting period. Do you want to get through the early signing period and then start making a move? That's happened before. We can see what happens. I know other teams have already done it. That's other teams. So we'll see what happens. But to me, the biggest factor is, do you have somebody definite in mind that you want to go? And before anybody says it, I know Deuce Staley is currently out of a job. And Deuce is a fantastic Gamecock. He's a fantastic guy. He's not going to be a coach here. Just not going to happen. So just get it off your mind, and we'll move forward.
Move past that. I think you hit on one thing, David. It was like, you not only have to find somebody who wants to come here and is going to, and it shows the interest to be here too, but depending on, which coach and which position group you get rid of, you have to make a hire that just looks better. Like, this guy is a better qualified guy. It's not, you can't just roll the dice again on somebody, because we're still in that like Dowell Loggins, like, we're okay, all right, he wasn't a big name, he wasn't what everybody expected. You give him a year with Spencer Rattler, obviously it seems like he got the most out of that for the situation that was on the field, especially with the O-line. But I don't think you can just go out there and get just some dude, Sure. It's going to have to be an obvious improvement with a body of work behind it, I think, to back it up.
Yeah, and I get it, man. I mean, a lot of people, just because they're able to, you just throw stuff out and say, why couldn't this happen? When before they hired Lamont Paris and USC had a men's basketball opening, guy wrote me and said, Mark Few, make him say no. I'm like, buddy, I think that decision is going to be made long before you ever pick up that phone call, I mean, can't you just hear that? Mark Few, can I help you? Yeah, coach, this is South Carolina. Hello? Yeah. Come on now. You got to be realistic about this kind of stuff. So right now, I mean, yeah, obviously I know a lot of the slings and arrows came to the defense this year, and deservedly so. That defense through the first 8 games of this year was awful. And especially with, you knew that the front 7 or front 6 in that scheme might be kind of shaky because of the guys they lost. But I said, well, it's okay. The secondary, experienced guys, good guys, they're gonna pace it. Well, what happened? The secondary was bad for the first 8 games. Now, to Clayton White's credit, he made a switch and it worked the last 4 games. And as for the last bit of unpleasantness that happened last Saturday, in no way, shape, or form can that be pinned on him. You hold team 3 field goals, you need to win that football game. And that's not the defense's fault, So you look at it and say, did that last month overcome, what happened in 8 games for it? I don't know. I mean, was it entirely the defense's fault that they didn't play that well in the first 8 games? You see it. That Florida game, they're going to be wearing that one for a while for sure.
Yep.
But a lot of factors that go into that and say, well, he did make the move. Say, could you have made it before? Yeah, you could have, but Maybe you didn't. And as for, the season opening performance, it's kind of like the offensive line. All you have to go on is your preseason camp. If those were your 5 best linemen, okay, they were doing their best against the defense. Was that your best defense? Yeah, they were doing the best against the offense. Well, they got out there against North Carolina. What happened? O-line was horrendous. 9 sacks. Ugh, can't have it. Just cannot have it. So, and then, of course, a lot of people are also asking, what about the strength coach? I mean, that was pretty consistent. Everybody kept getting hurt. I'm like, yeah, when it's soft tissue injuries, hamstrings, and things of that nature, you need to make a move. That's preventable. Will Muschamp did that with Jeff Dillman. Said, this can't happen again. As I wrote mid-season when all these O-line injuries kept popping up, you can go back to 17 and count each single year, 17 on up to this year. And it's not only been injuries, it's been injuries to one spot. One year it was quarterbacks. One year it was DBs. One year it was wide receivers. This year it was the offensive line. And it wasn't soft tissue, guys. It was sprained ankles. It was knees. Things that happen like that. It's like, I don't know if that's a result of conditioning, because if it was, wouldn't the whole team be affected by that?
Right.
Wouldn't they? So I don't know. Do you have to make a decision there? I saw that Vanderbilt fired their strength coach because they were concerned about the rash of injuries, but that's Vanderbilt. So those are a couple of positions that have been stressed to me. Like, hey, I'd like to see a change here. That's by fans. We'll see if the coaches actually do that, if Shane Beamer actually think there's a need to do that. But right now, everybody's intact. Everybody's recruiting. Everybody's doing what they can to get ready for next year. That could change. We'll see. But as we all know, there's a long time between now and spring practice.
I do find it interesting, by the way, on the Gamecocks online roster. The 2024 coaching staff lists one coach, Shane Beamer. So, just whatever.
Gotta go through and think top to bottom. Everybody's got to, prove their
last I checked, Shane didn't can everybody in the building, right? I just want to make sure it's okay. By the way,
let's not report that. From coach about 3 minutes ago. Should I hit him up and be like, "Hey, dude, is everything cool?"
Yeah, right.
He would have answered it if it wasn't still working there.
Well, no, I love what JC was saying yesterday. Was like, I do know that Hardesty was in the facility in his office all day the day before, and then you still had people. It was like, take that long to pack up a desk.
Yeah. This is the 20. Yeah, this is interesting. The 2024 football roster, Shane Beamer. There's no players, no coaches, nothing. So Shane's safe. Everybody else, I don't know. By the way, the assistant strength coach is Jamil Walker, who came from Arkansas. He was actually up for this job before Luke Day got it. So that's just kind of an FYI.
You're going to have guys in their basement with strings running from pictures and maps and stuff. All this off season.
It's silly season. I mean, I saw it. And of course, knowing Brad pretty well, I know he wouldn't tell tales out of school, but the first thought that came in my head, like, that doesn't make much sense if you're sitting where I am, but that's what we're here for. I'm trying to track it right now, and we'll see, but I don't know about that one.
Well, you don't ever count out Auburn. You never count out Auburn, and you never count out Hugh Freeze. But I could see why both would fit for KJ Jefferson. I really could. But I mean, I want to move on to basketball with you, David, because they're 6-0, and they need to get the spotlight here. But I will say this: I mentioned at the top of the program, if you're South Carolina, you just watched your program go to 5-7. Injuries crushed you. Depth crushed you. The portal last year crushed you. If you're Shane, and I don't care who's on the staff, you got to communicate with your players. I'm not saying anything that they don't know. Obviously, I'm just saying this into the camera. I'm saying it out loud here. Your players who are on your roster have to understand you are going to recruit over them. You have to do it because you have got to protect yourself in this day and age. It ain't like the old days where if you decide to transfer, you're going to wait to let the NCAA decide whether you're eligible to do it or not. You're eligible. If you haven't done it, you can go. And if you have done it and you've graduated, guess what? You can still go. So, and you don't want to get Marshawn Lloyd it again. Last year, Marshawn Lloyd was good. He goes home, he leaves, never shows back up, screws his roommate over. So, like, this stuff, the world that we're living in, these coaches who are getting fired in year 1, fired in year 2, fired in year 3, they have to go out. And when there's a really good player, it doesn't matter the position, that wants to come play for you, you have to talk to them. And if you can sign them or can afford to, you got to do it, because we just saw what happens if you don't, A, have enough good players, and B, replace the good players that leave.
Yeah, it's the new normal, Jamie. And of course, traditionalists, guys like us who grew up with it, and you say you just don't want that to happen. I mean, I've long said the kids need to get a little more than scholarship and room and board, but now it's just a case of, like, you knew as soon as the NCAA lost that Supreme Court case, you knew it was happening, because what did they do? They didn't say, all right, well, we're going to take a look at this and we're going to have a solution. They didn't think to have a plan in place just in case. Now, they said, we're going to win, don't worry. So when they lost, what'd they do? Hey, kids can get paid for their name, image, likeness now. Schools, handle it. You handle it. Right. That was it. So, of course, what did everybody start doing? Hey, you want to come play for me? Oh, wait a minute. No, you can't do that. Sorry, you just said we could. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Right. So now everybody's, of course, trying to rein it in. States have passed laws that said even if the NCAA passes something to regulate NIL, we're not going to listen to it. That's what you have. And it's got to be so frustrating as a coach, because you can say, well, we'll get some NIL, but you're powerless to do that. You can't give it to them from your own pocket. You have to have the people who are interested in your school, meaning the donors and the boosters, they got to give it. Right. So how do you do that? You can say, oh, well, look at that, but you have no power about doing that. So you have to realize it's like, this is just what you're going to have to deal with. And, of course, Shane said, hey, I love the NIL program here. Of course, we need more. He's not talking bad about the folks that do give to USC NIL. It's just saying that it's never going to end. You're always going to have more, because there's always going to be a highest bidder. And you guys knew it. You mentioned Marshawn Lloyd. Yeah, same thing. You told, I'm coming back. Cool. Think you ain't got to worry about that kid, right? And next thing you know, he's gone. So it's something that you're going to have to constantly deal with. And the problem is that you can't really see it coming. You know who your best players are. You know who might get contacted. But even as much as they might say, Coach, I'm with you, I'm there, we just, we got to talk about this and get the T's crossed and the I's dotted, they can leave at any time. So you just have to deal with it when it comes, roll with the punch, and say, all right, didn't expect that to happen. Now we got to go make it better. But that's what's got to drive Shane Beamer and every other coach just batty. You can't control it. You can't. There's no way that you can get your arms fully around it and say, all right, we've got this handled. So you just hope that the kids are happy with what they're getting, but there's always going to be a highest bidder. And, they're in these homes and they know how to recruit these kids, and never underestimate a family of a kid saying, we really need you to do this for me. You put it on a 19, 20-year-old kid to take care of their family. That is hard to turn down if you're that age. Yeah. I know if it had happened to me, I'd have said, yeah, what do you need me to do? Right. I'll do it. But that's the thing. It's the new world. It's not ever going back to what it was. And I know people like, well, buying kids, buying players has always been going on. Yeah, I know, but not to this level. Not to the level where it's like, how much? Okay, yeah, we'll meet that. We'll go over that. And, again, not to mention the current situation was like, South Carolina and Auburn could be in there. How's that going in recruiting wars past?
Yeah, not well generally. But the Gamecocks, if they do get him, they would be 2 for 2 in this cycle, because they did just flip Jalewis Solomon. So, maybe things are turning, David. I don't know. But it's where we are, and it's about to be sleepless nights for guys like you. And I go to sleep anyways. I'm not really that worried about it. So
I got used to this. When I guess it was, going way back 14, 13 years ago, there was a good 5-year stretch there where I had to keep the phone by the bed, because I knew that at least once a week I'd get a text message at 1 or 2 in the morning. Hey, you boys down here, you better come take a look. I'll let you figure out who your boy was. But it was somebody around here that played football and had a penchant for hell raising.
Oh, yeah. He's a good kid. He's a good dude, though. He just like to have fun.
Hey, that kid left. I got my first good night's sleep in years.
Yeah, that's right. DC, on the basketball front, I've got to say, I'm going to spice this up. Okay, y'all ready for this? I've been waiting on this all morning. South Carolina has the second best record in college basketball. They're undefeated at 6-0. Houston is 7-0. The Gamecocks are right behind them after winning last night. And if they beat George Washington on Friday, and if Clemson beats Pitt on the road this weekend, early ACC matchup there, we could, and this is going to be up to guys like you to do the research because I ain't doing it, we could have a top 25 Clemson, South Carolina basketball matchup at Little John Coliseum next week in the upstate. That would be something.
And you forgot to mention, you're talking about the men's teams. That's
right. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, but obviously very exciting time, Jamie. And, a lot of people are asking me, like, why aren't you writing about it more? I'm like, I am writing about it. It's just, there's a lot else going on with football and all that. But being at the game last night, seeing that team win, they're 6-0 now. And yes, you are correct in saying that, well, they haven't really beaten much of anybody at this point. Who cares? It's just fun to see South Carolina men's basketball winning. It's fun to see that gym full. It's fun to see them go out and play hard because they played hard last year, but the season was a wash from the start, so nobody came out to watch them. And I get that. That is perfectly fine. But now it's just fun to see them winning, and it's fun to see them have that. And speaking of what could be, I don't know if it'll be a top 25 matchup just because I don't think both will get enough votes to get into the next poll when it comes out on Monday. But they are both receiving votes.
Yep.
Clemson went on the road, beat Alabama last night, which is damned impressive.
Yeah.
And Clemson's got a really good team. They should have made the tournament last year. But, I had one too many bad losses. South Carolina, though, is playing well. They've got some guys. Yes, it's one thing to where they're kind of stapled to one way of winning. Going to shoot the three. Well, they didn't make many threes last night, but they made up for it from the free throw line. And they won comfortably.
Yep.
So it's good to see that team winning. It's fun to have games to care about, especially in this stretch of December where the kids will be leaving campus. It's always great to go to a basketball game over Christmas break, fellas, and the students come back just to see them play before they go back home to finish their break. And that's what they're looking at. Student section was outstanding last night. If you didn't read the quote from Notre Dame's coach, Micah Shrewsbury, he's like, he said, man, I don't know much about the history of South Carolina basketball, but I've seen them play before, and there was nobody in the stands. So we're out there for warm-ups, and them doors open. I saw them kids coming in. I said, sending them for crap. I was like, the kids made their presence felt, and that's what was good. So it's good to see this team win, to be playing well, to be playing confident, having fun. And, yeah, no matter what, it's going to be a great game up in Clemson on December the 6th. But if both of them are undefeated, which USC has George Washington on Friday, and I'm not sure who the Tiger – Pitt, you said, at Pitt?
Yeah, there's it.
Yeah, that's a tough game, but I think that they should win that game. Yeah, it would that would be a definite slaughter knocker up there in Clemson.
I don't know about you two, but I thought last night early in the game you could feel the layoff. They were settling a little bit, kind of firing them up there, and it just nothing. I'm not going to say they didn't have energy; they had energy, but it just didn't look like it had looked because this team has been attacking all season, just attacking, and they just couldn't get it going. But they had to kind of get back into the groove, and you mentioned it. They finally did kind of find a way to slip back into it. I wasn't there. I was just able to watch it on TV. You mentioned the atmosphere. I know there was a little over 15,000, I think, is what actually made it through the doors last night. So describe that atmosphere. It's been a while since we've seen that in November.
Yeah, it was terrific, man. The students, they're in that section right at midcourt, right behind us, and then the whole end zone. I was pleased to see that USC did do a good thing of, the student section has limited seats. And the overflow, because it's first come, first serve, they put them in the upper deck. I was glad to see that last night. I think it was either at 10 minutes in the first half or maybe halftime. They said, hey, if you guys want to come down and find an empty seat, go ahead. That's a really good thing to do. That's what they need to do. And I know a lot of people are saying, hey, we need to have students ringing the court. I agree with you. You do. Yeah. But those seats have already been sold. So if that happens, it ain't going to happen this year. I realize it, and I would like it too, but that's just not going to happen, not for a while. So it's great to see all the kids there on their feet, especially in the second half. Now what I want to see is that all game. Standing up the whole game, making noise, causing a ruckus, talking junk to the other player, the opponents. That's the kind of thing that really makes a hostile atmosphere, and that's what you want to have. But the rest of the crowd, nothing against them, they were terrific too. They were standing up, they were pointing at the officials, they were talking to Notre Dame. Right during the last couple of minutes of the game, John Whittle, sitting beside me on press row, actually pointed out, I was like, I think the Notre Dame coach is like yapping with a fan. And I looked over, and there was an exchange going on. I thought, might want to watch that, Michael, old pal, because that's not going to get you anywhere but trouble. But yeah, that's what's great to see, man. I mean, just fans up there enjoying it, having a great positive basketball atmosphere. And I know people are like, hey, man, they've had that for women's for years. I'm like, yeah, but it's a different crowd. It really is a different crowd. But it's great. It's great to see Colonial jumping, and it's great to have a good basketball team to watch.
Carolina now currently 64 in the Ken Palm ratings. George Washington up next. They're down there. It should be a win for the Gamecocks. The Tigers at 35 after that victory last night over Alabama. And before we let you go, obviously what's going on the other side of basketball at South Carolina is more kind of the same. It's a pissed off Dawn Staley coached women's basketball program that's done nothing but run through everybody all year long. DC, we haven't had a chance to talk to you. So since they've started playing, so I'm just going to ask you this big, bold question that you probably have been asked 100 times. Is this the most talented team she's had since she's been here?
Oof, that's very, very hard to answer. And just because I've seen other rosters that were bigger and had more players, I mean, right now the one that really comes to mind is actually the 13-14 team the year before Asia got in there. Before now. That team won 29 games, and that team was astoundingly good. And then the very next year, you get Asia on there, and you're like, that's just talent. I mean, stocked up and down the lineup, and not that this team doesn't, but this team has 11 players, and really only 9 are in the top rotation. That's including Tessa Johnson when she returns from that foot injury. But they play a different brand of basketball. They're very exciting to watch. They're very fun to watch. Of course, everybody said, hold on, let me get this straight. We lost all 5 starters off of a team that's been to 3 straight Final Fours, and we're better? Like, I'm not going to say that, they were better than the team because we're only 5 games in, but they are certainly very, very talented and very good. They play a different brand than the team that was in here the last 4 years. And if a lot of folks want to say, what's more fun to watch? I can see that, but it was awful fun winning all the time too, the last 4 years. So this team's winning now. They got 2 big matchups this week at North Carolina on Thursday, at Duke on Sunday. But the way that they have come out to start this season, I'm not surprised that they won. I am surprised by how they won and how dominant they have looked. I mean, they are just going at it and just taking the fight right to the other teams, and they're beating teams in different ways. So it's really good to see, because I thought it might be a little bit of like, okay, you got to work yourself in. And I've been the first to say there might be a couple times this year they get their butts trashed. That's fine. You don't have to be undefeated to win a national title. Unfortunately, we all found that out last year. Mm-hmm. But this team, I'll put it this way, fellas, because I've said it before and it hasn't jinxed anything. After the Maryland game, second game of the year, I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and make a hotel reservation in Cleveland for April. Let's just go ahead.
That's right.
Yes, it's fully refundable. I need to make that clear. But so were the last ones in Dallas and in San Antonio. And I forget where it was. It was in New Orleans in 20. And then, of course, COVID, I didn't end up going.
Right.
But I used all those. So,
well, I got a feeling you're going to be well on your way. The Gamecocks will be back on the floor tomorrow night at 7 on ESPN
in Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill, taking on the Tar Heels, the 24th ranked Tar Heels, who are actually coming in on a 2-game losing streak, being defeated by 16th ranked Kansas State, and then this past Sunday upset by Florida Gulf Coast 65-64. Carolina, back-to-back road trips there, and then they got to go to Durham, take on Duke next week. So
it's going to be an interesting trip on Tobacco Road. Of course, they've been playing Duke for a while in the series. It's just the way this one worked out because it's guys were an ACC SEC challenge last night. This is the women's version on Thursday.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. What a great! It's always fun when Gamecock basketball is playing well, and certainly is fun when you don't get to go to a bowl. And hopefully they'll fill the gaps for us, as you just mentioned a little bit ago. We'll let you run on that, DC. Before you go, what do you have in the paper coming up here in the next few days?
Well, I got my research done on it yesterday, so it'll be Saturday. Not to spoil the surprise, but obviously it's bad when Spencer Rattler has such a tremendous individual season, but the team maybe doesn't have the greatest year. It'll be a story channeling on that with some other quarterbacks that have tried that same path.
The postandcourier.com, where you can subscribe, download the app. You can just read it every morning while you're getting ready or whatever you're doing. Dave, man, yeah, it's good to see you. I'm glad to have you back. You're so good at it.
Yes. It'll be a fun weekend. Got some basketball, and on Sunday, well, unfortunately, my beloved Northwestern Trojans will not be playing for state this year. It's a topic we'll get into it another time. Still got some feelings about it. But Sunday, 4:25, San Francisco 49ers at Philadelphia.
There you go.
I'm not going to make any promises. I'm just hoping I get to see a complete game this year.
Are you and Dawn going neck and neck on this thing or what?
So last year they were playing the NFC Championship the same day the ladies were at Alabama. I went to that game, and the championship game started right as the basketball game was finishing. So I kept my jacket zipped up, did the post game, went up to her, unzipped, Dawn, go Niners, go. She's like, oh, okay, I get it. And, of course, right after that, Brock Purdy's elbow got turned into lettuce.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have a little bit better result this time.
That's going to be a great game. That'd be a great game.
Go Niners, go.
DC, have a wonderful weekend, man.
Take care, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.